Hi everyone. Welcome to week 10 of our Composition 1 course. Sorry that this video is coming out a little bit later than normal. Hopefully you still find it useful. Um, Let me begin by going over kind of just this summary, this overview here. So last week, hopefully you found a good question to research for writing project 3, something that you're really going to want to dig into and learn more about. This week, you're going to start exploring that question by finding sources, including sources from the Columbus State Library databases. Throughout the next few tasks, you are going to learn more about conducting research and using databases. But I have here some additional ways to get help should you feel like you need it. So you can email one of our librarians using this email address. You can call a librarian at this number. You can also take a look at the library's YouTube channel by clicking this link, and they have some tutorial videos there. For task 10.1, you're going to be doing some readings. First of all is chapter 47, which is getting a start on a research plan. Next, chapter 48 on finding resources. Chapter 49 is evaluating resources, and chapter 50 is synthesizing ideas. In task 10.2a, you're going to learn a little bit about how to find sources. The types of sources you'll use will depend in part on what your research question is. In other words, you'll need to ask yourself, what kinds of information will help me explore my particular research question? Maybe you'll need scientific data, maybe you'll need articles written by scholars or by lay people. Maybe you'll need to interview someone or create a survey. The Norton Field Guide chapters that I mentioned above provide general information to help you find or use all kinds of sources. For now, try to focus on finding what the field guide calls periodical sources. Periodical is something that is published periodically, so a newspaper, a magazine, a journal. Remember that Writing Project 3 calls for you to use at least 2 periodical sources in your paper. But you may want to start by searching for even more so that you can choose the best ones. It's often not a good idea to use just the first couple of sources that you come across. It's better to get more sources than you actually think you need, so then you can look through all of them and get an idea of which ones are going to be the most useful. In task 10.2b, you're going to learn about databases. There's a video here that explains what databases are. In 10.2c, we have a couple of videos here that I'd like you to watch. The first one is about how to access resources off campus, which is especially important right now because I imagine none of you or very few of you are on campus. And then the next video is how to use Academic Search Complete. Academic Search Complete is the default database on the Columbus State Library website. And it's where you will likely, one of the first places you'll likely go to begin looking for sources. In task 10.2d, you're going to actually find the sources. Now that you've watched these video tutorials, I'd like you to spend some time using Academic Search Complete to start finding newspaper, magazine, or journal articles related to your research question. You can go to cscc.edu and then click on the library link to start searching. I recommend to find a minimum of 6 sources. Again, it's usually better to have more sources than is necessary, just so you have plenty of things to work with. I would recommend keeping track of the sources. When you find something that seems useful, make sure that you download it to your computer, or you write down the title and the author so that you can find that source again later. One thing I will say is if you try to just copy the URL, so the link at the top of the page on the library database, every time you go to a source within a database, it's going to generate a new link, a new URL for you. So if your plan is to just copy and paste links and like go back to them later, very likely the links will not work. So you'll need to find other ways to make sure that you can go back and find your sources. If you don't feel like you're finding useful sources using Academic Search Complete, try using some of the library's other databases, and I have a link for that here. And you can also look for sources online using Google, or other search engines. But before you do that, I would make sure to review suggestions for finding credible sources, which is in the Norton Field Guide in the chapter on evaluating sources. In task 10.3, we have a discussion board post. I'd like you to post any hints you've discovered for using Academic Search Complete or other databases. I'd also like you to post questions you have about using the databases. In task 10.4, you're going to evaluate the sources that you've found so far. Now that you've found some periodical sources, please read and annotate them carefully. Doing so will help you immerse yourself in the research. Follow the tips for reading sources in the assigned chapters from the Norton Field Guide. And after you've read and annotated at least 6 sources, I'd like you to write out responses to these prompts. So number 1, list each useful source you found and include the author, title, name of the publication, and the date of publication. And for each source, I'd like you to explain the following: how you found the source, what makes the source credible, what makes the source relevant to what you are doing in your project, and how the source might help you answer your research question. For number 2, I'd like you to list at least one source you found that you ultimately decided is not useful to your research, and explain why you decided to discard that source. For number 3, list at least one source you found that may be useful, but you're not really sure about. Then explain why you're unsure about that source. For number 4, I'd like you to consider what's missing. What do you still need or want to find out about your topic before you begin actually writing and planning the paper? What new directions have these initial sources pointed you in? Do you plan on shifting gears at all? Do you need to tweak your topic at all? What have you learned from these sources? Number 5, consider whether there are other types of sources that could help you explore your research question. For instance, is there anyone you could interview? Is there a questionnaire that you could distribute online? These pages in your textbook will give you some ideas about that. And then finally, consider how you may need or want to tweak your research question a bit based on what you have learned so far. Does your question need to be broader or narrower? Do you feel like you need to move in a different direction? If so, rephrase your question. In task 10.5, you are going to read some sample projects written by previous students. Under the drafts posted in week 12 under the Student Success Gallery, I'd like you to read a couple of those papers and think about what the strengths of those papers are and what areas could the writers improve on. The essays that have been included in the Student Success Gallery are good examples, but that doesn't mean that they are perfect. So you'll need to think critically about what those sample essays are doing. For task 10.6, you're going to make your Friday discussion posts. After reading the student papers mentioned in task 10.5, write about what you see as the strengths and weaknesses of the papers. In other words, what specifically are the students doing well in the papers, and what could they improve on? And I'd like you to write a reply to at least 2 of your classmates. How did their tips for searching databases help you? Can you provide any further tips to help them? How do your peers' discussion of the student sample papers compare to yours? Did you have different opinions? Did you think similar things about the sample essays? You have a variety of things here that you can talk about in your reply. And at the end of the week, you're going to submit the writing that you did for task 10.4. which is this right here, evaluating and thinking about your sources. That is all for this week. Let me know if you have any questions or if there's anything I can help you out with.